I'm making this video pretty much exclusively just to joyously proclaim to the heavens and earth how much I love the Metroid Prime Remaster. The Metroid Prime trilogy are some of my all-time most favorite games. I play at least one of them every single year, if not all three. I have played Metroid Prime at least, without hyperbole, 20 times in my life. For me, a full remaster of any of these games was one of those fantasy daydream wishlist things, where I was like, wouldn't that be so awesome? But obviously, it's never gonna happen. Nintendo never gives us what we want. That's not how they operate. They will never remake Metroid Prime. And then freaking kablamo! A few days ago, they released Metroid Prime Remastered out of nowhere, and this remaster is awesome. I've seen some people who seem to think this is just a minor graphical upgrade. Well, you are dead wrong, dummy. The developers have completely remade everything from the ground up here. Every texture, every model, every particle effect. It's all been totally redone and it all looks gorgeous. The thing is, the original GameCube version of Metroid Prime has visually aged really well. Despite being over 20 years old, it had such a great art style, so much visual creativity, and so much detail in its visual design that it still looks good today. You take that art style, that creativity, that detail, and give it a modern overhaul, and the results are beautiful. Look at these Chozo Ruins. The crumbling rune-laden walls, the withering plant life, the sunlight streaming in through cracks in the collapsed ceilings. Look at the frigate Orpheon, the wasteland planet looming enormous in the backdrop, the grotesque parasites slithering through the halls, the dead or dying space pirates crawling through the sparking remains of wrecked low-orbit research laboratories. Look at the Phendrana drifts, the abandoned alien ruins lying amongst the glittering new fallen snow. I mean, god dang it, this is the remake I've always wanted. They freaking nailed it, top to bottom. Mechanically, the remaster is mostly identical to the original, and that's a good thing because Metroid Prime is one of the greatest games ever made. It's very nearly perfect. The only major change that's been made is to the controls. The original GameCube Metroid Prime had some slightly awkward tank controls that worked really well once you got used to them, but were always a little weird and definitely feel pretty dated today. The remaster has been updated with dual analog controls, like any other shooter made in the last 15 plus years, and they feel great. Having consistent free aim improves the flow and feel of the game dramatically. You can actually play the remaster using the original control scheme if you prefer, which is cool, or you can play using the motion-controlled pointer aiming from the Wii version of the game, which is awesome because I loved the Wii controls. However you want to play Metroid Prime, the developers will let you play that way, and it'll feel great. I think these sorts of options show how passionate the developers were about this remaster. You don't include these kinds of playstyle options if you're doing a quick and dirty port job. This remaster feels like it was made by a group of developers who really cared about the original, and wanted to release an updated version that not only improved the experience, but that was totally faithful to everything that made Metroid Prime so amazing in the first place, and to please as many fans as possible. This is up there among the best remasters that have ever been made. Now, I'm going to do a quick run through of Metroid Prime and show you everything that makes this video game one of the best. Like so many other science fiction tales, Metroid Prime begins with a distress signal. Our hero, mega badass bounty hunter Samus Aran, follows this distress signal to the space pirate research frigate Orpheon, in orbit around an uncharted planet called Talon 4. This is one of my favorite video game intros ever. In the cold depths of space, the space pirates were conducting heinous experiments on living test subjects, using an unknown mutagenic substance to forcefully evolve primitive creatures into twisted and frightening new shapes. However, like the classic story of Dr. Frankenstein, their creations turned against them, escaped, wreaking havoc throughout the research vessel, hence the distress signal. By the time Samus arrives, things have long progressed from bad to worse, and then past that to really, really worse, aboard the Orpheon. The ship is in dire condition. Most of the space pirates are dead or dying, and one of their freakish creations is still loose in the bowels of the ship. Here I need to introduce you to what I think is Metroid Prime's most brilliant feature, the scan visor. With the scan visor, you can scan almost anything in the environment and learn more about the world. For example, on the research vessel, you can scan every single space pirate corpse, and it will tell you how they died. For example, this one's spine was severed. Bummer. This one was burnt to death by acid. Ouch. This one had his internal organs removed. Holy crap. If you scan their computer consoles, you can learn about their research. It'll tell you which specific strains of mutagen were most effective in their experiments. It'll tell you what specific mutations occurred in their research subjects. Later on in the Chozo Ruins, you can scan this random wall ornament, and it'll let you know that it was carved in honor of the planet's sun. Alright, cool. This random computer console in a pirate base tells you that the space pirates have been ordered to euthanize all their pets to prevent accidental mutations. Brutal. Other consoles will tell you the story of these space pirates or the Chozo from their perspective, what they're doing here, what they want. You can scan creatures and learn a little bit about their biology, their dietary habits, their preferred habitat. You can scan this fern and the game will tell you these ferns grow near water sources. Whoop-de-doo. It's crazy how much stuff you can scan in this game, how much you can learn about the world. All of this information is basically useless. It doesn't affect the gameplay in any way, but it adds so much detail and life to this world, makes it feel so much more immersive. I don't understand why every game doesn't have a scan visor. Seriously, I wish every game would do this. For example, Elden Ring. I loved Elden Ring, but I had no clue what was going on in that game. What the heck is any of this stuff? Imagine if in Elden Ring, anytime you wanted to, you could pull out a scanner and it would tell you something about anything in the world. Of course, we wouldn't want it to spoil all the mysteries, but just give a couple basic details about anything you wanted. Like, what are the dietary habits of these giant asshole piece of shit lobsters? Are they carnivores? Omnivores? Photosynthetic? I think it would be fun to know. Anyway, back to Metroid Prime. Eventually, Samus tracks down the last living runaway experiment on the Orpheon, the Parasite Queen. After she defeats it in battle, it falls down the ship's energy core, and everything starts exploding. While escaping, Samus runs into Ridley, a space dragon who has been outfitted with cyborg parts. Because what the heck even is this game? This is crazy. Then she chases him down onto the planet. The frigate Orpheon crashes into the planet's surface. And the really crazy thing is, much later in the game you can actually find and explore its crash site and wreckage, which is now half submerged in a subterranean lake. This section of the game completely blew my mind as a kid. I was exploring this still smoldering and sparking wrecked spaceship, half its decks underwater, most of its systems completely offline except for some random self-defense turrets, here and there defending a ship already long since lost. Finding the submerged remains of the space pirates' experiments, wandering through what had become an entirely new ecosystem, where aquatic flora and fauna were already making the quiet and cold, watery corridors their new home. This is so freaking cool. I've never seen any other game do anything like this. Explore a spaceship, watch it crash into a planet, then go and explore it again. Except now it feels like a totally new and alien environment, because it's been flooded and inhabited by a new set of creatures. I mean, come on, this game is awesome. Anyway, so the planet of Talon 4 is dying. Many years ago, a rogue asteroid of unfathomably distant origins impacted the planet. That asteroid carried with it a terrible biological semi-sentient poison called phazon, which is the mutagenic substance the space pirates have been experimenting with. This phazon spread deep into the planet's core, ravaging the biosphere, destroying almost all it touched. And what few creatures it didn't outright kill, it transformed into hideous monstrosities. That biosphere is slowly withering away, and within a couple decades, Talon 4 will be a dead planet. Samus has to delve deeper and deeper into this withering, poisoned planet's depths, totally alone, battling the mutant survivors of its scrabbling wildlife, unearthing these space pirates' secrets and terrible experiments. It's pretty freaking cool. The first major area you explore is the Chozo Ruins. These are alien ruins, long abandoned, desiccated and crumbling, overrun by hostile indigenous creatures, its water and soil poisoned by some some foul monster nesting at its highest point. The Chozo Ruins have always felt like a sort of game within a game to me. At first, they feel almost totally self-contained within the world of Metroid Prime. Like you crisscross these ruins for a couple hours, going back and forth, exploring an open path, finding a new upgrade that lets you open doors, back in an earlier room, backtracking, finding another new upgrade that lets you open even more doors, until eventually you feel deeply familiar with this setting. Like you've totally conquered it all piece by piece, growing stronger and more confident all the while. After the Chozo Ruins, the game opens up dramatically. All of a sudden you're crossing the entire planet, going from one biome to another. The game's map is this intricate, convoluted, interconnected, three-dimensional labyrinth, full of caverns and alien ruins and space pirate bases. It's kind of overwhelming at times. You're gonna spend a lot of time staring at this map and asking yourself, how the heck do I get where I want to go? And also, where the heck do I want to go? The game gives you relatively little guidance. It kind of just drops you alone in the middle of a labyrinthine, hostile alien world and says, figure it out for yourself, dude, which I completely love. As much as I adore a really rich character and theme-driven narrative experience, I also love a game that's totally hands-off, that lets you figure out everything for yourself, that lets you go at whatever pace you want just as much. If I have any criticism for Metroid Prime, it's that the backtracking gets a bit excessive at times. There are several times in this game where you, as soon as you reach an objective, have to turn around and go right back the way you came, and then do it again and again. For example, there's this bit where you explore through the lava-filled Magmar caverns, and then through the beautiful frozen Phendrana drifts, until you reach this dead end, where you acquire the boost ball upgrade. Well, if you search your map, you'll see a spot back on the overworld where you can use that boost ball. So you have to double back through the Phendrana drifts, back through the Magmar caverns, back through all the same rooms you just explored to get there. Once you reach that spot, you acquire the double jump, and guess what? Now you have to go literally right back to where you started in the Phendrana drifts. You have to trudge back through all the same rooms in the Magmar caverns for a third time, back to the snow area, and use your double jump to reach this temple. This happens a few times in the game, and it is a bit much. Metroid Prime 2 and 3 were much more linear and disconnected by comparison, so you very rarely had to do this kind of extensive backtracking, where you're walking through multiple levels and biomes over and over again. I go back and forth over which map design I prefer. In some ways, it's really cool how interconnected Metroid Prime is, and how much the game leaves it up to the player to figure out the correct path forward or backwards for themselves. However, it can be a little much. The game really would have benefited by having some kind of central hub, which connected to all the other areas in the game. Metroid Prime is the kind of game where you have to be okay with the fact that sometimes you're just gonna be lost. Sometimes you're gonna walk down the same path 3 times in a row. You just gotta chill out and enjoy the sci-fi alien planet atmosphere, dude. If you have the attitude of, I just want to reach my next objective as quickly as possible, you'll be frustrated. But if you go in with the attitude of, I just want to get lost in this beautifully detailed immersive alien environment for a while, you're gonna have a much better time. Anyway, the final major area you explore in the game is the Phazon Mines. Up to this point, you've tangled with some space pirates, blasted through a couple of their minor bases, but this is their main base. This is where they've built up their infrastructure, their machinery, where they perform their horrific research experiments, where they've settled deep into the planet's crust like some kind of infection, where they mine the planet's poisoned resources. Every other area in the game is full of life, full of plants or full of indigenous creatures, while the Phazon Mines feel totally artificial and dead. They are crude, dark, brutalist, factory-like. Everything here is built for efficiency and practicality. Beauty or aesthetics are irrelevant to the space pirate mind. Only function matters. In these industrial caverns deep down in the planet, you'll battle more space pirates than ever before, and much tougher space pirates too, because the pirates aren't just experimenting experimenting on random creatures. They've started experimenting on themselves with hideous results. All this leads to a harrowing confrontation with the egregiously mutated Omega Pirate, easily the hardest boss in the game and maybe the hardest boss in the entire series. From there, after a bit of a meandering collectathon across the entire game's map, collecting Chozo artifacts, you jump straight into an almost equally tough battle against Metroid, the sci-fi cyborg space dragon, and this is an awesome boss fight, one of my favorite in the trilogy. Finally, you descend into the impact crater of the rogue asteroid that crashed into the planet, the one that brought all the Phazon. Down here in the impact crater, it appears that the asteroid itself and all of Phazon is actually a single massive organism. In this most strange and exotic of environments, there are bone-like structures and teeth growing out of the floor, weird amoebas swimming through the walls like blood platelets through arteries. The ground and walls are all made up of some kind of mushy organic matter. This impact crater is alive. In a finally totally awesome boss fight at the very core of the planet, you defeat the titular Metroid Prime, the source of all Phazon on the planet. However, if you complete the game at 100%, you'll get a secret ending. In its dying grasp, Metroid Prime actually grabs Samus's Phazon suit, and then in this final secret scene, you can see her using that suit as a new carapace, becoming Dark Samus, a secondary antagonist in Metroid Prime 2 and the main antagonist in Metroid Prime 3. Everything good I have to say about Metroid Prime, I have something equally good to say about Metroid Prime 2. I would love for Nintendo to remaster Metroid Prime 2. That would be another dream come true. I don't think it's guaranteed to happen though. You might think that it would be obvious to remaster both games. Like they remastered the first one already, the second one reuses a ton of assets from the first one. It's a no-brainer, right? But I've been a Nintendo fan for long enough to know that Nintendo never ever does the obvious thing. Like back when that Link's Awakening remake came out on the Switch, I was like, cool, Nintendo can remake literally any 2D Zelda game in the same style. Like at minimum, they're definitely gonna do a Link to the Past 2, right? Nope. Never. Too obvious. Too easy for Nintendo. They want to do it the hard and mysterious way. So what I'm saying is, please buy the Metroid Prime Remaster. Do it for me. Do it for yourself. You're gonna have a great time. It's a fantastic game. The only way we could guarantee a Metroid Prime 2 remaster of this level of quality is if the Metroid Prime Remaster sells like 1 million copies. Unlikely, I know. But hey, we can try, right? Anyway, I'm definitely gonna do some Metroid Prime lore videos, digging into the story of the game later, so look forward to those if that's something you're into.